yeah, so tape study became a very big priority for me when I first started training, and we didn't have access to a lot of instructionals back then either. BJJ Fanatics was not a thing. Ryan Hall had some fantastic instructionals, and they still hold up very, very well back in the day. But he was about as close as we got to that kind of stuff. And so anyway, I just had to learn how to do tape study back then, and I built a routine out of it because that's what it was going to take for me to get good at jiu-jitsu. Now, though, you have a bunch of people trying to break into the YouTube space as jiu-jitsu content creators, and you have things all the way from like jiu-jitsu culture content creators where they just talk about experiences at gyms and cultural things, and then all the way to like guys doing full-on breakdowns on YouTube of what they think they see in matches. And what I try to do when I see those things on YouTube is I try to just listen to what they have to say and try to see if there's a perspective there that maybe I haven't considered, or maybe they have a piece of tape that I haven't seen, or maybe they're using a resource that I didn't know existed. And I'm just trying to always just broaden my own perspective on it, because I can watch a match 100 times and I know what I see, but it's not always going to be everything, and it's not necessarily even being approached from the right perspective necessarily, right? Like but that's the funny thing about perspective, is you don't really know what you don't know, it's kind of works like that.
What is up, ladies and gents? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Raph Esparza, coming to you with another great installment of the Grappling Hour. We again have a top tier guest here, seen meditating. But hold on, we didn't tell him we were going to cut to that, so that is actually my fault. I mean, listen, now he's attentive and he's up and he understands what's going on. We really should tell the guest, but maybe we shouldn't. Maybe it's a good thing we do this, like a little checkup on them to make sure, like, are they paying attention? They're not going to pay attention when I have to plug my stuff. It's all right. I will plug my stuff right now. You continue what you do, sir. As we get into our stuff, yes, we obviously have Sean on the show today. But before we get to him, a few quick reminders. First and foremost, if you do not subscribe to us on Patreon, what are you doing? Listen, guys, go to patreon.com/grappling hour. Go there, support us, give us your love and some of your money. Not a ton. Gonna be honest here. We try to make it as user-friendly as possible, and for just $5 a month, you can see my interviews 30 days before anybody else. And for a few extra dollars, you can check out extra bonus content not available anywhere else, including some tape breakdowns with the athletes themselves on some of their biggest moments. So with fighters and athletes in big stages, they do tape studies with me. There's also a segment called Roast Raph, where people roast my competition footage for whatever reason. Our most popular segment. You can also like, comment, and subscribe. If you like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us here at the show. But if you don't know what you want to comment on, by the end of this video, we will give you something to comment on. So just be aware of that. Check that out. That is super great. If you also want to support the show, you can also get, there's some merch. Normally I have a swap out here. I don't have the swap out today, but you know what it looks like. It basically says Grappling Hour, supports the show. Go on over to raphesparza.com/merch. You can buy one of those t-shirts for $25. It supports the show. You can also get a hoodie. Now, I don't know why you would want a hoodie in this heat, and I'm just being honest here, but I do know that some of you compete and you need something to stay warm in. What better than a Grappling Hour hoodie? And underneath it, you could wear the t-shirt. You get a combo. It's a little bit cheaper off that way. raphesparza.com/merch. But it's about to get cold, so maybe by the time you see this, it might be cold in your region. Who knows? I have no idea when you guys watch these things. And finally, but not least, go join us on the Grappling Hour Discord, where we are starting to kick back up conversations with questions of the day, and it's our way of extending the conversations we have here on the show. All right, our guest. Well, he and I had some words. Not bad words. Don't get it twisted. We were just trying to converse and figure out what was going on here. I was under the impression I have interviewed him before. I am pretty sure that I have, but I didn't know for sure if it happened here on the Grappling Hour. Now, why is that a problem? Well, one, we don't know what my memory recall is looking like at this point, so I don't know if I'm turning into Biden slowly. But two, I think the idea is we wanted to right a wrong because this gentleman has been such a great coach. He's an excellent jiu-jitsu practitioner, and everybody who talks about him when they have come on the show has professed him as being one of the top tier coaches in the nation. And honestly, I'm hard pressed not to think the same way. He does excellent coaching work. He's always behind the scenes. He has excellent instructionals, just an all-around good guy and a fellow Frenchie owner. So I wanted to check in on a few things, but first, Sean Applegate, I'll ask you this. How is your lovely French Bulldog doing, sir?
Man, they are doing great. So I have two. We have my boy Jameson. He's been with me since he was a baby. You know, he's only like 6 now, so he's just kind of getting into that groove where he's full grown and that thing. And then I also adopted one
Mm,
about 5 or 6 years ago, and she was already 6. She was kind of a rescue, and
mm.
so she is now like 11, and she's hanging in there. She seems happy, so I think they're all around happy. It's
So
hard to honestly, it's hard to upset those dogs. They stay kind of happy all the time.
see, you got the happy one. I got the moody one. So I have
Mm.
a French bulldog. Now, the reason I remember this is because we got them around the same time. The only difference was mine was from a rescue, so she was about 6 months old at the time when I got her,
Mm.
and we were trying to figure out what kind of name we were going to give her, and we gave her Lucille Bluth after the character on Arrested Development because she's very sassy. And we found in her older age, she has a younger sister, so both of them are rescues. But the second dog had lots of energy, a little Chihuahua Pug Zoo kind of mix kind of
Mm.
thing. And I found that the French Bulldog was like, no, whatever you want, no. I'm not
Yeah.
interested. I don't care for it. So I see yours always posing perfectly. And I always think, like, I have to work so hard to get these poses out of my dogs. And I see you just like over here, they're always like portraits kind of photos with you and Jameson. So I'm like, man, I don't know what he's doing, but he's doing it right.
He's just a happy dog, man. Like he's like he's a Frenchie, 100% whatever. I went through like he was my first French bulldog, so I went way overboard on like
Mm.
checking the bloodline, vetting the breeders, making sure there was no inbreeding, like the whole nine. Because it's a nightmare, honestly. If you go down the rabbit hole, it's a nightmare trying to buy one of those dogs.
Yeah.
It can be anyway, and so I went way overboard, and he's got a little more Boston in him, like because they're an
Mhm.
amalgamation of other dogs, and they all lean one way or the other way, and it determines how their build is and personality. So he's a little closer to the Boston side than like the pug side or whatever. So he's a little taller, he's a little leaner, and I think he just has more energy. Now Chloe is the opposite. She's a little stubby short dog, and she's a little more grumpy and a little more just kind of give me my space. So I couldn't tell you if that's a male female thing for Frenchies or if it's just because of who they are or whatever. But I can sympathize because my female French bulldog is like that. She keeps Jameson in check. He gets hyped and she shuts him down quick.
This is very along the lines of the life that I know, where Lucy is the first, the French bulldog. She is very much in the space of like, don't talk to me. I just want to rest in daddy's lap. I don't care what's going on. My wife's like, she is your dog. She does not care
Mm.
about me. And she's very clingy and attached to the point where sometimes when I'm doing these interviews, some fans will know that you slightly hear her in the backdrop. And she'll literally bark because she just wants to sit and hang with me and just wants to
Mm.
watch me do work. And I go, this is boring unless you love jujitsu. I don't know what to tell you. So she is very funny in that way. But I'm so happy to hear that. And of course, my wife did all the dog versions of my 23. So when that happened, she's like, "Ooh, I found new results today." And I go, "Listen, babe, this might be too much. I think you
Yeah.
have to stop doing that." And she's like, "I don't know, maybe we can meet like their parents and stuff like that." And I go, "Nope, nope, we're good. This is what we do. She is ours. We don't need to see where she's from." But we did notice one thing because like yours, sometimes when they come from a rescue, they are a little injured. So with Lucy, we don't know what happened to her, but we've kind of made up a story where she did come to us. We did help her. She is eternally grateful, but we wonder if she came from like a Hispanic neighborhood, because every so often when I would say something in Spanish, she would be like, ¿Qué? And I go, wait, is English your second language? And, you start getting into that moment where I'm like, did a Hispanic family have you first? And also, I can't speak that much Spanish, so this is going to end real quick. So we are delighted in many ways. All right, well, most people didn't come here for dog talk. Most people are coming here to see you, Sean Applegate, the illustrious coach. How do you feel when people are praising you? Because I always feel a certain way when people say overtly nice things, but people have said overtly nice things about you as a coach. Every one of your guys who has been on the show that you coached has spent a good 5 to 10 minutes talking about you. So have you grown more comfortable with it? How do you interpret it? How do you take it when the guys maybe are going on different shows or even on the microphone after big wins, shouting out you specifically?
Yeah, it's a little weird, like, honestly, at first, because you're kind of like, man, this is your moment. And I didn't really have like a day in, day out coach with me when I was coming up. So like when I would win things, it would just be kind of like, yeah, like, thanks guys, like just kind of living in the moment, I guess, or like thanking my students that were my training partners and stuff like that. So like that was cool, but it's very odd to me. And I usually end up telling them like, hey, look, like, this isn't like expected, or it's not really something that like I look for. Like, I don't comb your podcast interviews to see if you said something good about the school or me or the training part. You know what I mean? So it's a little weird when you first start like getting it. But what I take it as when they do it is just like, it's just their like gratitude for like the extra work that goes in, because like oftentimes I'm with them like for extremely extended amounts of time. So like at the gym we train at 7:30 in the evening, Monday through Wednesday, and then I'm there until 11 p.m. almost every single session. The session is only 2 hours. So our session's over at 9:30, but it's pretty rare for me to get out of the gym before 11, because we do our training and we have our training method and stuff. And then after the live rolling session, I'm there with them for hours, like answering questions, like helping them troubleshoot things that happened. Sometimes we study tape. Like, there's a lot of extra work. And then like I travel with them to their tournaments too. So like I don't, they don't pay me. So like if they win money, like they don't pay me. Like there's no like thing like that. Some of them pay dues at the gym, some of them don't. And it's pretty much just like a lot of like sacrifice on all of our ends. And I think that that's just their way of saying thanks for the sacrifice that you made to come here on your own dime and on your own time and stuff like that. And I just take it that way. I don't know how I'm supposed to take it. I don't know how anyone else takes it, but for me, it's just like, that's just them saying thank you. And so I just I just try to see it through that lens, I guess.
That's good. It is awkward because you might be alluding to something, which is they may be overcorrecting it, which is, oh, I don't pay to go here, or I just won this and I recognize how much work you put into me. So then it becomes a like, man, Sean, and you go, okay, great. Sean got his shout out. Excellent. Now I wanted to ask you, but man, another thing about Sean, and I go, they really do love you. And, the thing on my side is that I've noticed, and I'm not sure how many other people have put this together, but the range in personalities, let's just pick 3 right now.
Mm.
Elijah, Ryan,
Mm.
Kevin Beering.
Yeah.
Now, those 3 personalities are incredibly different. I do understand there might be some overlap on the Venn diagram, but as a fellow coach, you give me those 3 different personalities, they all require different things. So for you, how are you budgeting all of these different personalities? And if those are just the main 3 that we just brought up for the discussion here, because they've all been on my show, that's great. But that's on top of the other students that you have. So what has been your best approach in terms of managing the different personalities, whether they're going to competition or they're in your gym at any given time?
Well, the thing is it's like I think you can tell when you meet, because you obviously you just meet people in your day to day, and you meet everyone's different, and like you can tell when people are good people, like in their heart, if you spend time with them. And that's like the biggest thing is like you meet these people, and regardless of like what they may say, regardless of what they may do, you can generally draw a conclusion over a set amount of time, like, oh, this dude is a great person, like at the core, even if they do things a little weird, even if they put their foot in their mouth sometimes, or even if they've done some things that they didn't think were wrong when they did them, they were wrong. You can tell if they didn't mean to hurt people, or if they meant to be like good people. And I think as long as you have that one thing, everything else is just about communicating and understanding each other, right? Like as long as the foundation is there. So like Ryan, Kevin, and Elijah, three guys you named, are great people. Like they would do anything for each other and for other people. Um, they're all just different personalities, like the spectrum that you just gave is insane. Like the difference between Elijah and Kevin Beering is insane. So, but it's just like that middle ground. It's like, all right, you guys are great people and you care about each other and you put the work in, and I care about you guys. And so as long as we have that one thing, everything else is just going to be communicating, trying to understand each other. And the biggest thing I would say with coaching them is just goal setting. Like Elijah, Ryan, and Kevin all have vastly different goals. You know what I mean? And like you should expect all of your students to have different goals. You wouldn't try to put a goal onto your students. Like you wouldn't try to say like here's like a kind of a one size fits all goal, or here's the best kind of goal archetype, like or anything like that. You would just simply say, hey, what is your goal and how can I help you reach that goal? And you just don't put them in too much of a box, and it almost becomes a more beautiful thing that everyone's different rather than a challenge in front of you.
I say that, but I also don't have to deal with Elijah on a daily basis, who, you know, last we left off on the Elijah chapter at the PGF, we had invited him to come on. Elijah did not come on. And it was very strange because I do like Elijah. And so the first thought I always have is, all right, man, if you really have to, it's not great. Don't love it, but go do what you need to do. And I ran into him, I want to say a day later, and I just kind of like gave him like, keep up the good work. Like, hey, man, I'm not super mad at you. I was at 11 p.m. I'm over it. But I just find that when you have somebody like that, it's a little unpredictable. I think Kevin, at his core, is going to be like this sweetheart, nice dude who also just happens to rip apart legs. Ryan's always going to be entertaining, a very good showman. And Elijah's was just one of those great talents where you go, I think this is just a stressful environment. So I think he is going through the stress of that. So if you can, make sure to pass on the word. We still love him. We'll have him back on the show at some point. But in my brain, I go, oh, that's just producer me having to deal with someone not being here. I don't think that happens with you, but it also gives way to, oh shit, there's a lot of personality that's going to come out at any given time. So you don't know when it's going to happen. And it just gave me a peek as to what it is that you sometimes will have to go through.
Yeah, no, Elijah's great. So Elijah and I have a very specific kind of relationship, right? Like he's my guy, like we have a very respectful kind of we have to be business sometimes, you know what I mean? It's not all personal. So it's kind of like he comes in and it's like, all right, you have this goal and I'm here to help you work towards that goal. I have to tell him things he doesn't want to hear sometimes, and I get to tell him things that I know he really wants to hear sometimes, and that's really beautiful. And Elijah just is like with me, Elijah's an extremely respectful person, and so like that makes it so easy to deal with him. He doesn't do anything wildly disrespectful. He doesn't say anything crazy. Like we just get the job done. And in our personal relationship, it's this he's just the bro, you know what I mean? In our personal relationship, it's just comedy. Like we probably send 40 to 50 memes back and forth every day, no matter where he is or what he's doing. Like we're having conversations in a text message, and on Instagram he's sending me memes in the middle of this conversation. We're texting back and forth. It's like And I think that Elijah does a fantastic job of keeping his professional and his personal life separate, and not separate in the way that it's like they don't ever overlap or whatever, but just separate in the way that he like understands when a relationship is in a professional space and then when it's not. So he's not like asking me to be professional with him in like personal settings, but he's also not being overly personal when we're in professional settings, if that makes sense as well.
Yeah.
So I have to tell him things like, hey man, like, you know, you really need to do this, or like, hey, that was a really bad like coaching him through like preparation for like an EBI overtime. Essentially, it's like that was a very poor rep. The effort is too low and the technique needs to be refined in this area, so let's focus here, and I want you to just give me a little more effort on this one. And like that's hard to tell people, because when you're an athlete and you're in those moments and you're tired and you're stressed out because you're getting ready for something and you're underperforming in the training room, it can be extremely stressful for the athlete to hear like, I need more effort, because you feel like that stress has you at a point of maximum effort, when in fact it doesn't. It's just it's literally just stress straining you and making you feel like there's a like extra weight, you know, it's like an extra 5 pound weight on the barbell, you know what I mean, it didn't need to be there. And so he just does a fantastic job of not like freaking out when he feels that way and stuff like that when we're in a professional setting. And then when we're in a personal setting, he doesn't like do the weird thing where sometimes guys will keep treating you like you're the coach when you're like outside of the jiu-jitsu setting. And I find that that makes it really impersonal. Like when you go to hang out, like if you hang out with some of your students and then they're just like treating you like coach the whole time, it's
Mm.
like it's awkward. Like, you know what I'm saying? I know some guys are like super into that. Like they're like, I'm still the man, even though we're not in the jiu-jitsu setting. Uh, it makes me feel like I don't really know them. You know what I mean? It makes me feel it feels shallow and unreal. And he doesn't do that either. Like it's, you know what I mean? So that's what I would say about Elijah. It's Elijah's gonna Elijah, like you said. Like I've like people have this image, I think, of me that like they'll text me sometimes and they'll say, dude, Elijah said this or Elijah did that. And my response is always, what do you want me to do about it? You know, like I'm not his dad. It didn't fall into the realm of our professional relationship at all. It's more between you and him. And like even if I wanted to call him and be like, "Elijah, what are you doing?" Like, he's just gonna laugh or something. Like, there's just that's not gonna happen. He had a disagreement with a guy recently that's pretty influential in the community, and this guy came to me about the disagreement, and, I mean, honestly, dude, I literally was just like, "You need to just go talk to him, man. I don't know what you want me to do. I'll tell him that you're not happy, but you gotta go talk to him." And eventually that guy went and talked to him and everything was fine. But until that point, it was like, "I got nothing for you, buddy. It's you know, what am I gonna do?"
To be fully honest, when he didn't show up on our show, we brought somebody who's not his favorite person on.
Mhm.
And when we bring on Kevin, he's in the comment section and he's bitching about it. And I go, you don't get to complain. Like
Yeah.
you were given first dibs. He's like, he's only there because of beef with me. And I go, I think you have answered your own question, sir. Like,
Yeah.
if you were here, we'd be talking to you and doing this. But if you don't show up and I've got time to kill, I'm going to be looking around. And that whole day was a melee into itself because apparently there's a fight that broke out behind the scenes. And then when those things happen, you got somebody telling me on air, they're like, do you see the fight? And I'm like, how would I see I'm right here. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll tell you. I was like, you shut up, sit down. We're doing you next. Hey, you, Kevin, shut up. Talk about your feud. All right. What am I supposed to do here? How is this? We're live, right? Okay, great. So when all these things happen, like you mentioned, it's not like I'm going to sit there and reprimand him. I just go, well, now you're going to live in the consequence of it. Like
That's it.
choices have consequences. And it's like when you want to be in the comment section to bitch about it, it's just like, I didn't do this. But guess what? We're all going to live in that. We're going to make fun of it. Obviously, he'll come back on at some point. But to me, I just thought in that moment, I go, it's so funny to see somebody doing a comment section where it's like, I wasn't available for the interview, but I'm definitely available for the comments. And I go, uh-oh. All right, well, I can't be responsible for the jokes that are going to come as a result of this. So my
And that's
brain's going to work.
Elijah, bro. And that's Elijah. And that's how I deal with him the same. I go, dude, he'll make a decision like that, and then he'll be like, well, and there'll be this thing. And I'm like, well, listen, you chose that thing, brother. So you had to know that this is how it was going to play out. And if you didn't, now you do. And next time you just do it a little differently, and then just give him a pat on the back and a hug and send him on his way. And that's just the way that coaching Elijah is, man. He's one of my favorite people in the world simply because of how unique he is, honestly.
I just think of it like this. I operate in a space of professionalism always. So that's just the professional way to do it is, you show up for a obligation as tired as you may be. And I think now that we're starting to give people a peek as to what obligations look like as professionals, there's the added stress of, dude, that's not an easy format to go through. You're going to go through emotions live on air. That's kind of the intended purpose, but you don't really experience it until you experience it, and then you don't know what you feel. So maybe an hour before he was ready to be on camera and he was fine, and then things change. That happens. But I wasn't giving any notice about it. And when that happens, you go, uh-oh, well, now I got to figure out what to do. And then the worst thing is you see somebody on the side being like, hey, Raph. And I go, what? They're like, okay. Hey, you're walking around here. What are you doing? So to me, then that's why it's important the next day to be like, hey, man, it's good to see you. You better go win. Like, do what you need to do for your process, because I think a lot of us know the potential that he has. And so I don't want to be the person that's ruining that potential. But at the same point, as we get bigger, that is part of the responsibility. So I would like to say that if that is the case, we always try to be those people who help them understand those responsibilities without being attacking. Like, it's not he comes on the show and it's just like, well, the audience said you sucked. What is your response to that?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, hey, man, what was your day like? Tell us about it. And for us, I think it's a good entryway. I do want to point this out, though. When the guys are talking about you, I do think is within reason, though, because maybe people aren't putting this fully together, but you are behind the scenes. And correct me if I'm wrong, were you at the most recent EBI Absolute coaching Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me from your interpretation what that experience was like, because you did repost, thank you for the way doing that, by the way, the meme where we were basically having Ryan explain what it felt like to be in that company of two other individuals who have won the Absolute for EBI, and having his name attached. And you very nicely put up like, man, isn't this wild? But from your perspective, what was it like watching him go through that very, very solid run at EBI?
Oh man. So at these tournaments, especially when we're like dealing with the highest level of the sport, I try to make sure that as the tournament unfolds, I'm able to be mat side for everything that's going on. And the reason for that is because we have to make adjustments. In brackets, you don't really know like how they're going to shake out. So you don't know who's going to beat who. You don't really know where you're going to start most of the time. And sometimes people get hurt and there's replacements. And so one thing that I was told like early on about coaching that I thought was cool at the time that I quickly learned from even from an athletic standpoint was not very true, was that like, all right, athletes on the day are different than athletes in theory. So like if you watch an athlete on tape, the athlete on the day, if you plan to compete against them or have someone on your team compete against them, is going to be different from the athlete in the video. People just are different. The mentality, the physicality, could have just been a bad day or an amazing day for them, depending on what's going on. Preparation could have changed, whatever. So what I was told was go to the mat, watch everyone's first round, and you'll have a good feeling for like how they are that day, so what kind of day they're going to have, and then you can adjust your strategies as the tournament unfolds based on what you saw. And I used to do that. I would watch the whole first round of a tournament, and then I would go in the back with the guys, and I would try to then prepare them for what I thought was coming next. But after having coached for a few years, I learned very quickly that there are a large portion of athletes, especially in BJJ, whose first match is their weirdest and slowest match of the day. They're very slow starters in jiu-jitsu, it seems like. And so what that means is if you go out and you just watch their first match, then you get this idea, oh, well, he was slow. He was hesitating on things. This guy's having an off day today. And then you watch their second match and they look like a machine. They're just ripping through the second guy. And it's like, oh, he just had to get through his first match. And I've had a bunch of my own athletes have that thing where their first match is weird. And I do think that doing super fights and stuff like that can help you curb that a little bit. But I think that if that's who you are, that's just who you are. And so sometimes they have that. And so what I do at these tournaments is I try to go and I try to sit on the mats throughout the tournament. And if you watch like ADCC from 2022, specifically the second day, I'm on the corner of the mat in a place that I don't think anyone was allowed to be. I just kind of slid under the radar and I was there for like the entire second day of ADCC, just like on the corner of the mat in this little spot. And if you watch the EBI absolutes, there again. So like I was just like, Eddie, is it cool if I just sit right here? Like I'm out of the way. I'm like not in front of anyone, like whatever. And he was like, yeah, you're good. If anyone tells you to move, just tell them that, I told you you could sit there. I was like, perfect. And so there I was for the whole event. So for me, it was gauging the opponents. Obviously not the first one because, it was his first match of the day, but watching everyone go through their ups and their downs, watching the tournament and getting to see how people were holding up, getting to see what kind of exhaustion levels were happening, getting to see the mistakes that were made. And so what we would do is Ryan would go in the back. We knew who his first opponent was. It's someone that Chase had fought and beaten. So I was kind of just like, all right, cool. We have a pretty good strategy for what we're going to do with this guy. The second guy we didn't know. So then ended up being Pana. And I watched Pana's match and I was like, all right, cool. So to fatigue Pana, we're going to have to use up downs. So basically, like, Pana will not pull. So you're going to have to pull. And then when Pana drops to his knees to close the space, we're going to snap his head and we're going to stand. And then Pana's going to have to get back up. How many times do you think Pana can get up and go down in comparison to how many times you can get up and go down? Right? That it can't even be like 50%. Like, there's no way. It's an 8-minute match, so we're going to have to get that going pretty quick. So Ryan did a fantastic job of making Pana do up downs until he got tired. And when Pana got tired, Ryan double legged him and put him on his back, which is absurd considering there's a 100-pound weight difference between the two of them. And had him in a footlock when the bell rang. So if it was a regulation 10-minute match as opposed to an 8-minute match, then our strategy would have worked perfectly with Pana and he would have been submitted in regulation. It just took longer. Pana was in better shape than I thought, honestly. I was like, man, like, and I even told him that after the match. I was like, dude, you're in good shape, dude. He's like, yeah, I lost some weight. I've been changing up my training. So I was impressed, but the strategy was the same. But I developed that strategy from watching Pana's first match. And then in the third match, he had Fedor, who Ryan's fought multiple times. And so with Fedor, and he was the only guy that was Ryan's size that he fought. Everyone else was heavier. So we just went out and went to the bottom and went for the leg against Fedor. It's where Ryan's had the most success against Fedor in the past. So we just went right for it. But I also watched Fedor's matches and I felt like he would stand. I felt like he would stand over Ryan, and he did. It was very predictable in that way. So just watching him on the day, in the past, Fedor's pulled guard. He likes to play close guard. So that would have been a hard thing to know if it was just based on tape study. And then the final match with Big Dan does pull guard. So the strategy to exhaust Big Dan was a heel lifting strategy where we knew that Big Dan likes to play sitting up, and he doesn't like to go to his side, but he will go to his side, but he won't go all the way to his shoulder. He goes to an elbow. So we played a strategy where we lift Dan's legs in an effort to make Dan do a constant crunch with his abs. And that worked so well. Big Dan just continued to fight that position and do that crunch and do that crunch and do that crunch. He started getting tired. He got on top. Our strategy for defending his passing game was simply to manipulate the head because Dan passes head forward and he doesn't do well when people manipulate his head. So we manipulated his head to make sure that we could escape and then get right back to that game where Dan's on his back and Ryan's lifting his legs. And he completely exhausted him with that leg lifting strategy. Obviously, if we could get him tired within the 10-minute regulation, like we get him tired early, the game was to pass him and pin him and try to submit him from the top. But ultimately, the biggest goal with him was not to do what Giancarlo did and run in there and assume that static positions were going to play the same way against him as they would against someone who didn't have a 100-pound weight advantage over him. So, like Giancarlo put Dan in some very structurally broken positions, and Dan just decided he wasn't going to be in them anymore and removed Giancarlo from that position, which it makes sense when you look at them. And I thought Giancarlo played a very technically sound game with Big Dan until the leg lock exchange, and Big Dan just had no problems. And none of Big Dan's matches were very long, so we knew that he wouldn't be very tired going in, and we needed that full 10 minutes to wear him out. But if you watch the overtimes, Ryan does a fantastic job escaping, which, like, honestly, man, like, and this is gonna sound a bit, I don't know if you're supposed to say this about your own guys, but I think Ryan may be one of the absolute best EBI overtime players in the world. Like, his escapes are right where they need to be, and his offense is very good as well. So he escaped very well, which we assumed going in was going to be that way. And then on offense, though, the interesting thing, I knew Ryan could submit him because he's good back there or whatever. But when Dan went to defend the rear naked choke, and I only noticed this in the replay, I didn't notice this live. He reaches up and he just puts one finger on top of Ryan's hand, and then he taps. And to me, that's just pure exhaustion. Like, if you don't even like intelligently grab, because he knows to do that stuff. He's a great jiu-jitsu player on top of being a massive person. Um, you're just so exhausted. You know what I mean? And so our plan was, we're at EBI. We walked in. It's 80 plus degrees in here. We're in Texas in the summer, and they have no AC on. The doors are open. These 300-pound dudes are going to burn in this heat. They're just going to exhaust themselves. And so our main strategy shifted from a movement-based strategy to exhaust them to a isometric burning strategy to exhaust them. And that's what worked. So for me, it was just literally watching the tournament unfold, strategizing match by match, making the adjustments, staying mat side to make sure that I saw the things that happened so that in case there was a curveball, I caught it. And Ryan did the rest of the work, man.
This is a good time to mention that you can find Exploring Outside Heel Hooks by one Sean Applegate on BJJ Fanatics. Sir, that was a fantastic overview of the entire event. You know, normally I ask follow-up questions. I was not necessary in any part of that. I want to point this out. The way that you're able to break that down gives people a peek at not just how you approach the coaching side, but also how you take in surroundings, the psychological aspects. The strategy is so sound. And actually, now that you mention it, I would be so pissed at you if I was any of these opponents hearing this, being like, this motherfucker made me do crunches. How dare he exhaust me by making me do extra, what is this, calisthenics? He's making me do functional fitness to exhaust me? Listen, dude, I do jiu-jitsu. I'm not trying to be the best CrossFitter in the world. So as you were mentioning that, I just thought, like, yeah, that would pretty much exhaust me pretty quick. Like, I would pretty much be done after about a minute of, I don't like this. This is not fun anymore. This was, it was jiu-jitsu and it became something else.
It's just like, what, when you start getting to those levels in the sport, the issue with just using imposing strong technical jiu-jitsu is that things don't line up the same way. So, like Giancarlo, if you watch the Giancarlo Big Dan match, look at the positions that Giancarlo is able to put Big Dan in. They're structurally sound. He is able to put Big Dan in some very technically sound jiu-jitsu positions, like top half guard, and he gets a hip stagger, he gets head and arm, he's just destroyed positions where if you're under 230 pounds, Giancarlo's not moving. You are just stuck there with him. And Giancarlo is a fantastic jiu-jitsu player. Obviously, I don't have to speak on him too much. He's an ADCC champion, but Big Dan just decided to not be there anymore, and he was no longer there. He just simply moved Giancarlo out of the way. And it's because when you're 300 plus pounds and you're on gear, it's It's insane. It's actually crazy. And so one of the things you realize very quickly is that, oh, I have this game, this jiu-jitsu game that's designed to just do this and do this and do that. And then all of a sudden, like, the rules change. Oh, wait, he can just push me off of him? I'm in a position that no one gets out of. How does he just push me off of him right here? Well, because that's what you do. And if you'll watch Gordon, when Gordon was at 88, Gordon tried to run through people with like strong technical jujitsu, and it worked against the guys he had a huge skill gap with. But when he started going against the guys that were on a lot of the sauce, you know what I mean? Like when he went against
Hmm.
Lucas Barbosa, he couldn't do anything to him. And the reason he couldn't do anything to Lucas was because he was just banging his head against a brick wall. He's putting Lucas in all these positions where Lucas shouldn't be able to respond. And yet somehow Lucas is just able to move him and get out of these strong positions. Uh, because the thing you find out is that when these guys have gas in the tank, that RPM is a lot higher than you anticipate. It's a lot higher than what you're used to dealing with for the most part. And the positions just don't line up the same way. And it's why a lot of athletes, I feel like, in the sport do it, is because they go, man, maybe it's really hard to stay out of these positions or create these advantageous positions against the best guys. But if I can just do this juice and it gets me out, then that's what I'm gonna do. It's not gonna make my jujitsu any better. It's just gonna make it to where jujitsu doesn't work on me as well. And that's kind of the idea, you know what I'm saying? And when you deal with that a few times, or when you start to notice the trends in the sport, now the main idea becomes how exhausted can I make this person so that when they go to burn that, that's not left for them to burn. And that's what you'll see Gordon doing constantly to these guys in these matches. You'll watch Gordon exhaust all of them before he tries to kill them because he knows that if he goes over there and jumps on top of that guy while he's got a bunch of gas in the tank, that dude's going to bench press him straight off of him, even though he shouldn't technically be able to do it. Unfortunately, that's not the physical world, right?
Yeah.
In the physical world, we deal with extenuating circumstances sometimes, and that's one of them. And it's very apparent. You can watch Gordon's last match with Josh Saunders. You'll notice that Josh Saunders chooses to bench press Gordon off 2 or 3 times in the match. And what Gordon does is he just simply accepts that he's going to lose the connection and resets it and continues to exhaust Josh Saunders. The one thing Gordon was not ready to tolerate in the position was Josh Saunders getting up.
Mm.
And that's such an easier goal to set for yourself than completely mowing through someone with zero resistance, because that just doesn't exist at the highest level of the sport. He did the same thing to Andre. He did the same thing to every opponent he's had on Who's Number One in the last like 2 years, 3 years. Um, and the sport is catching up to it slowly. They're slowly uncovering it. If you watch YouTube, you'll see guys trying to do breakdowns where they're catching on to this idea that you should be exhausting these guys. But I can give you a couple of small examples of this happening in the sport that really made me go, okay, I see what's happening here. One example was Giancarlo versus Lucas Barbosa from ADCC 2022. If you go back to the history of Giancarlo versus Lucas Barbosa, for the majority of the matches, Lucas Barbosa gets the better of him. It's because Lucas does a fantastic job of physically overwhelming Giancarlo. It's not because Lucas finesses Giancarlo. As a matter of fact, at this point in the game, not many people really do a good job of finessing Giancarlo. He's very good. But Lucas Barbosa was able to bring a physical level to Giancarlo, the same physical level that he brought to Gordon when Gordon was at 88, that basically put Giancarlo at a standstill. And then when Giancarlo would wilt a little bit, Lucas would pour it on him, right? And these are things that I watch consistently happen. Now, Giancarlo did get up on him on a match. He did beat him once. It was an IBJJF, I believe. But, that was like one out of a handful of matches where Lucas kind of had his way with him. And then when we get to ADCC, what we see is we see Lucas have this insane semifinals match with Wagner, where they're going into overtime and Wagner kicks him in the eye and he gets all fucked up. And like, it's a wild match, dude. I remember being there for it and thinking to myself, like, man, this match is just grueling. These guys are insane. And then Lucas goes into this match with Giancarlo, where Giancarlo had Egan and I think that's how you say his name correctly. I hope I'm saying it correctly.
It's okay. I
Uh,
mess them up all the time, and
yeah,
people still allow me to host a show even though I'm not the best at names.
yeah, Egan O'Flanagan, right? I think that's how you say it.
Oh,
Like that's how he
you're talking about Owen O'Flanagan?
Egan. No, his name is like Egan Owen. I think you may be thinking of Owen Livesley.
So, how do I put this? You're talking about O'Flanagan over across the pond, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've interviewed him. I did get
You
that
have.
one right because
It's Owen.
yes,
Really?
because when he came on the show, I was very
Yeah.
specific in like, how do you say your name? So it's the Eoghan, right?
Yeah.
He pronounces it Owen.
Okay. Well, there you go. Owen O'F. There, I was wrong.
For a split
I
second,
had
I
a
was just
feeling.
like, wait, hold on. I'm not great at all of these, but I do know this. And if he did nod and smile when I was saying his name, more power to him.
Mm,
But when he was saying it out phonetically, because accent, it was like, oh yeah, me with this mate, blah blah. And I was like, wait, how do you say your name? And he's like, oh, well, easy, Owen. And I'm like, wait, did you say Owen? And he goes, I think he said Owen. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna yell Owen, and if I get it wrong, then that's his fault. So continue.
Owen. Well, there you go, dude. So, and but the way it's spelled is from
Don't get me down that path. I have
yeah.
definitely yelled at these guys, and I'm like, spell your name right. There is a right way to spell Owen, and you guys chose the wrong way. You literally took the long way to get to the
The
name.
longest way, dude. There's like 25 letters in his name, dude.
There was a
Why is
Q
all
in
the extra
there.
effort? Like, what were your parents doing, man? Did you know that there was another way? They just didn't tell you what
It's just
happened.
like you just go like, hey, can you spell this? Spell how
Yeah,
you think Owen is supposed to say it. I'm like, oh, I spell it like this. And I'm like, cool, it's Owen. Owen. That's
yeah.
it. That's all you need. You don't need the other letters. You should
This is
play
why
like
they
a
talk
name this
trash.
tune version of a name. It's like I can do
Yeah,
your name in 4 letters.
this is why they talk trash about Americans right there. They're like,
And
these guys are just too dumb. That's the only
you know
problem.
what the
That's what
best
they're
part about
saying.
it is? They're on a different time system.
Mm.
So I know he's friendly, and I want to point this out. He was one of our best interviews last year. I love the shit out of him. But I've never seen a guest volunteer that I did not ask at all to do a roast Raph segment where they roast my competition footage. We finished. He heard me plugging it and he goes, "Oh, I want to do one of those." And I go, "I didn't ask you." And he goes, "No, I know, but I feel like I would be really good at making fun of you." And I go, "Probably. Yeah, that's the segment. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're a good thing." Literally months go by. We did a thing where the 10 best interviews of the year, they get a certain prize at the end of the year. And we did it unexpectedly. People don't know about it. And we sent a t-shirt. We had just pressed those out. And he's like, cool, cool. Man, thanks. I did get it. Let me know when we're going to record that roast draft. And I'm like, bro, it's been months and you still want to insult me that bad? And he's like, yeah. I go, well, all right, we'll make it happen, man. So, yes, definitely a sweetheart and a very good friend of the show.
Yeah, dude. So, and I don't know him at all. So, like, I hope that if you hear this, Owen, you understand that anything that I said is completely in
Let's put
jest.
it this
But
way. He's got a great sense of humor. So he's
okay,
also got that
okay,
like British sense of humor. Like all him on his podcast is him doing shitty, like responding to people jokes. And they're so relaxed and they don't give a fuck. And I think we even spent time in saying why both him, Craig, certain foreigners do so well against us
Hmm.
because they just, in terms of roasting, they're just like, we just don't give a shit. We take the piss out of each other. And I go, that I understand. The rest of the
Okay,
jiu-jitsu and being
perfect.
good at, not really, but I do understand that part.
Yeah, yeah. No, well, perfect then. So yeah. Anyways, he fought. So Giancarlo fought him, I believe, in the semis, and he got a footlock, and it wasn't like a super long match or anything. Nothing really strenuous going on. So basically, what you have is this final set, and Lucas has just had this extremely grueling match. Lucas also cut down to 88 for that, and it seems like a rough cut. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not really sure. I've met Lucas a few times, and he's a relatively large guy. But so anyway, you have like all these. extenuating circumstances, like crazy situations. Matches are taking forever. You have this grueling match with Wagner right before. And then when you watch him with Giancarlo at the beginning of the match, Lucas is doing very well. He's, if anything, it just looks reminiscent of matches prior with Giancarlo and Lucas Barbosa. If you had just judged it off the first couple of minutes, I would have said, like, yeah, man, I think Lucas may be about to have his way with him. And then Lucas starts to get a little tired, and you see Giancarlo start to pour it on him. Giancarlo does a fantastic job of picking up on this fatigue from Lucas and ends up finishing him in regulation at ADCC. And I believe Giancarlo had a flawless run, an all submission run, 4 subs. And that is amazing. That's such a huge thing for an athlete to get in the sport. And my point was, though, is that the complexion of the match changed so dramatically the moment that Lucas started getting tired. And you'll start to notice that so much in the sport. And it's not a thing where I feel like people don't condition well. It's not that at all. I think it's a game. It's a game. And I think that that was one. If you watch Gordon's matches, you can find a bunch of them. I think that there are guys like Pena. I think Pena quit when he got tired with Gordon at that Who's Number One match. I think Gordon finally started to wear him out, and when that started to happen, Pena was like, "I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm out of here," and that's fine, I guess. However you want to see that, but wearing people out at the highest level of this sport is something that is so important to having technical success in your jiu-jitsu. Ryan had a match with Andre Porfirio the following weekend, right after the EBI absolute win. And Porfirio's another guy that is very dynamic. He plays a lot of open guards. He wants to invert. He wants to get to your legs. He's very good in the ADCC rule set. I think he's a multiple medalist at the trials, beating some very, very good guys. And he's fought Andre before, and he beat Andre in the EBI rule set where they had to go to an overtime, and he beat him. And in that match, Ryan did very well. He passed his guard and did a few other things, but he didn't get close to submitting him in that match that they had at the EBI rule set. And in this match is an ADCC format match, and Mo had hit us up and was like, "Hey, listen, I want to invite Ryan for sure, but Porfirio's got priority. He has medals at the trials. So we're going to invite Porfirio first. And then if we get another spot, Ryan should be next up." And that was cool. But I was like, "Hey, listen, he's going to fight Porfirio here in a couple weeks." And this is a conversation prior to the EBI Absolute, prior to the match with Porfirio, obviously. And I'm like, "Yeah, fight Porfirio in a couple weeks. We'll see how that shakes out." And he was just like, "Well, I got to do this invitation this way anyway, so it's not going to matter, but I'm sure Ryan will do well, whatever." And so then he wins the EBI Absolute. Next week, he's got to fight Porfirio. And we did the same exact strategy, 10-minute match. We're going to use a pulling strategy. So Porfirio is the opposite of Big Dan. He doesn't want to play sitting up. He wants to play collapsed on his side or flat on his back with his feet up in the air. So he played a pulling strategy where we forced him onto his side by pulling his top leg down and made him constantly have to open his hip flexors to stay in this open position that he likes to play in. And did it until Porfirio was having trouble keeping his hip flexors open. And then when that happened, we used an outside guard passing strategy we call the reverse body lock, which is it's just like a sort of a north-south passing strategy that we use. And he used that, and he took Andre's back and submitted him in regulation. And the defense from Andre wasn't very good once Ryan was able to get behind him because Andre was very tired. He was very tired from dealing with Ryan's advances in the passing, having pulled his leg down and exhausted him prior to going for the final pass, the final back take, the final submission attempt, all of that. He had exhausted Andre. Now, Andre wasn't like, "I can't walk off the mat tired," but he was tired enough that that strong resistance wasn't present anymore. And if you watch the match from the moment Ryan finally closes the distance and starts to pass the guard, it looks like Ryan just walks through him, when in reality, Ryan would have done that in the first minute of the match if it was possible to do that in the first minute of the match. It's just not, because of the amount of physical resistance that you face, and anyone that trains can probably relate to that. There's always those one or two guys you train with where the game that you like to play just It just seems like they can just overpower you here or just do this over there or whatever. And some of that is technical, but some of it is because they have physical attributes that create very unique scenarios when you grapple with them. And I think the more uniqueness to grappling with you um, there is, the more potential to reach a higher level of the sport you have, because people will have a very difficult time preparing for you. And I think that fatiguing people brings that back down to a level playing field where we can apply technical, strong jujitsu that looks like the way jujitsu is supposed to look. Um, and it leads to a very high success rate.
Every time you mention the concept of fatiguing, all I think about is that sounds like a good plan until I have to do it. And then I think I'm going to fatigue myself. So there is a big risk in this. And all I can think about is the opposite for me, being like, I know I'm going to make this dude tired. And then 5 minutes in being like, shit, I'm tired. Wait, this was a bad choice for me. No, it's definitely something that you do see, and your points and your examples are right on the money. Especially, I was going to bring up the Gordon and Pena one. I feel it was so obvious in the sense of, man, Pena, all things considered for the circumstances, just was exhausted. So that even though he was prepping for it, even though mentally probably in a different spot, just the exhaustion at minute 40 and people being like, oh, he quit. It's like, well, most matches don't go that long. And I think that begs the question for their rematch that's happening at ADCC, if part of the appeal of it for Pena, because it's an unnecessary match, but okay, sure, whatever. It is what it is. I think part of the appeal of it to Pena was maybe it's contested under those ADCC rules where at least you kind of have an idea of how long it could go.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think with the Pena match at ADCC, Gordon's just he's gonna have to play it like he played the Andre match. He's gonna have to use these tactics that he create a little more urgency in the beginning to get into these fatiguing positions very early, and he's gonna have to focus extremely hard on maintaining those fatiguing positions. And so a strategy that Hodger Gracie used to use was he'd play these fatiguing positions on guys, and he would try to get to them relatively quickly in the match. And you would see him hold these guys in these positions for a very long period of time. I think Danaher refers to this strategy as camping. We just call it posting, just posting on them. But it's not really passing. It's not guard passing. And that's where I think most people are having trouble trying to make sense of it. You can go on YouTube and watch people doing breakdowns of this strategy and like what they think they're seeing in these matches and stuff like that. And a lot of times what you're seeing is this strong emphasis on passing, but there's no emphasis on passing. As a matter of fact, the whole idea is not to pass. It's simply to stay in a position where you're making every effort your opponent makes to move a little more strenuous and a little less efficient than it should be. And you're trying to encourage that movement for as large a window of time as you're allotted, depending on the rule set and the match and whatever it is, to fatigue them in the most efficient way possible. Now, if they realize that this is what's happening and you have no intention on passing them, they can relax and there's a lot that they can do. But as long as they don't understand your goal, as long as they think you're actually trying to pass them, then it's very easy to create these predictable circumstances where they continue to fatigue themselves over a set amount of time. And I think that Gordon does a fantastic job of doing that to people. And I think that the most interesting thing about the Pena Gordon match for ADCC coming up is that when Gordon tried to do that to him at who's number one, Pena did a fantastic job of off balancing Gordon and getting out of those high fatigue positions. It took Gordon a very long time to fatigue Pena compared to what you saw him do to Gaudio or Marino or any of the guys he's done it to otherwise. And I think that presents a very interesting element to the match that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. Not that I expect to hear a lot of people talking about it, but I just don't. I think that's a layer of the match. How will Gordon try to fatigue Pena in that shorter amount of time? And he'll need to. And he managed to do it to Andre, but you could also say that Andre wasn't able to perform in the way that Pena was in that match at who's number one and keep him off balance and keep him out of those high fatigue positions. And so I think you're right. I think that a shorter time span and a different rule set is going to make the complexion of the match change a little bit. I wonder to myself how much this idea that he could off balance Gordon in that last match is going to play into it. Gordon's an incredible strategist on a technical and on a like tactical level. He's very, very, very good at that. And so I have to think that Gordon is going to address those problems in those positions. I wonder if Felipe is going to be able to change his own game to make it relevant again in this match.
I think the other thing is no time limit matches are a young man's game. I feel like when these guys got a little bit older, they're like, yeah, it's all good. It's like when you're old and you think you're going to go do a pickup game of basketball and you're like, I'm going to play the exact same way. It's perfectly fine. I think both of them were like, no time limit. Let's see who walks away. And I think at a certain point, they both were kind of like, why did we agree to do this? We make money now. This is foolish. And for Gordon, it's a dominant format because it's hard to break his will, sure. But as you mentioned, it took him so much longer to do it. And for a dude who was supposedly going through as much as Philippe was, you would think it'd be easier to disrupt that. But if you go back and watch that, that's still 30 plus minutes of still just trying to get someone so mentally off that they can't off balance you. And you mentioned that. That was my favorite part of the match, was watching this guy who was mentally broken, quote unquote, still being like in the match and still not getting as dominated as other people would. And even if Gordon was toying with him or using the idea of kind of posting or trying to get him off his game, it was compelling still for a reason of tension. And so when you look at that from an ADCC rule set, it's like, all right, well, now we're a little bit more within a time constraint. Yes, there may be some way that we do it. I'm not quite clear at what the rules are. Sometimes they go back and forth on what that might be, but both these guys are probably looking at like a 15, 20-minute sort of regulation sort of thing for a super fight. And if that's the case, now they're also looking at points. And I think that does change some of the dynamic on how the strategy is for Gordon, because it's not as open in terms of exhaust him. It could just be if we outpoint him in regulation, we're good. And that's a huge, that's a huge, huge thing. I did want to ask this. You keep kind of sprinkling these things in, and it does give me incredible amounts of fear here. You keep mentioning that you go online and you see people doing tape study or tape review. And now, Sean, full disclosure, very afraid to do any tape study, because now I'm thinking, if Sean's going to be watching this, I don't know that I have your encyclopedic knowledge of certain things. How many of these tape studies are you ingesting? Because you're not naming names, which is very kind of you, but you're like, you are mentioning that you are seeing some of them. So when you are watching on YouTube, how is it that you're getting sucked in? Is it the algorithm? Are you searching it out? Is it just when you put in a key term and you see somebody say, oh, I'm going to break down this match, and you go, all right, I've got 5 minutes. Tell me what you think. Like, how are you ingesting that?
So for me, like, I just have my own routine for tape study. I didn't have a coach with me coming up. So I had Brandon McCatherine. I could reach out to him, for things, but he was 6 hours away. I had Eddie, who's across the country from me. But for the most part, I was having to learn day in and day out on my own. And, um, other sports have this kind of stuff figured out. Other sports have, like, tape study is a very common thing, and it's very talked about. Like, one of the big things Kobe talked about was like tape study, Michael Jordan tape study. Like, people just tape study, tape study, tape study. And I'm like, what is this thing these guys are yapping about? They have football. In football, how many coaches do you have on a team? It's insane. You know what I mean? Like, you have all these people advising you and helping you, and people know the game and all these things. Surely you always have someone around you to just give you advice. In jiu-jitsu, we have one guy. You know what I mean? We have one guy with us that's supposed to have all the answers to everything, which is absurd if you look at it from a general sports standpoint. So, yeah, so tape study became a very big priority for me when I first started training. And we didn't have access to a lot of instructionals back then either. BJJ Fanatics was not a thing. Ryan Hall had some fantastic instructionals, and they still hold up very, very well, back in the day, but he was about as close as we got to that kind of stuff. And So anyway, I just had to learn how to do tape study back then, and I built a routine out of it because that's what it was going to take for me to get good at jujitsu. And now I still have that routine. I just have tweaked it a little bit because we have more resources now than we've ever had. And YouTube is a budding resource. YouTube jujitsu was basically non-existent on YouTube for a very long time. People would just post their matches on YouTube. So you would just see like so and so Grappling Industries Advanced Division or something like that, and it was not good. And so now though, you have a bunch of people trying to break into the YouTube space as jiu-jitsu content creators, and you have things all the way from like jiu-jitsu culture content creators where they just talk about experiences at gyms and cultural things, and then all the way to like guys doing full on breakdowns on YouTube of what they think they see in matches. And what I try to do when I see those things on YouTube is I try to just listen to what they have to say and try to see if there's a perspective there that maybe I haven't considered, or maybe they have a piece of tape that I haven't seen, or maybe they're using a resource that I didn't know existed. Um, and I'm just trying to always just broaden my own perspective on it, because I can watch a match 100 times and I know what I see, but it's not always going to be everything, and it's not necessarily even being approached from the right perspective necessarily, right? Like but that's the funny thing about perspective, is you don't really know what you don't know, it's kind of works like that. So I just try to gain perspective through those tape studies. Some of those people I watch and I learn things that are really valuable, and sometimes I watch it and I don't get anything out of it, but it's one more view for them. And I try to like the videos and stuff like that too, to just help support it, because the more jiu-jitsu grows on YouTube, the better for all of us as far as people who are trying to study online.
What a
And
sweetheart. Look at that.
that's how I find it.
I'm so glad that you at least leave the like. It's similar to the
Yeah.
meme I sent to one of my friends that it basically said, even when you get the worst service possible, they're the type of person that would tip and be like, this is the worst service I've ever had, 25%. Well, I'm going to let this bum live a little bit better. So I hope that's the kind of like we'll get in the future. Because honestly, for so long, I've resisted, for a few reasons, tape study with other people, because I do it as well.
Mm.
And I'm a huge fan of it, because I think, how do you live in a modern version of so much access to this information and not do it? And perhaps, yes, maybe it's because people like you and I have been around for so long. It's just like, we didn't have this shit, so you fuckers should be doing this. This is your job. You need to be watching it. Or you need a coach like you who does the homework, who can process it and say like, hey, here's how we reassess our goals. Here's how we do this. Having said that, I just couldn't imagine being a professional athlete and not doing it. So when you do see these resources pop up, what's hard for me is disseminating like, what's their format? How do they have it? What are they doing? What footage do they have? Because sometimes they have maybe the footage they filmed themselves of the match that's a different angle. And I go, oh, I want that because I didn't see that on the main camera. They cut away from the wrong time. And now I have a clear vision as to what the grips were that I didn't have. So I'm always obsessed with that, but I resisted it because, two, people are such bitches about their rights. Like, it upsets me to no avail. And Flo's gotten a little bit better over this over the years, but it upsets me that the fair use kind of legal definition is so vague that I think most of us are trying to do two things. One, grow as professionals and be able to talk about it in a professional way. But two, to try and discern what is fair use for academic purposes. And I think what ends up happening is you add the professionalism of saying like, hey, I do a service, I'm going to charge you a little bit for this. And there's not a clear process for licensing, let alone for news purposes for different organizations. Like, we're not on an ESPN Sports Center. So normally there's a licensing process where they own the rights and they can show whatever they want to show. Here, it's the Wild Wild West. It's just like, hey guys, I watched this match. Here's what it is. A week later, oh, they took it down. And it's disruptive and it's annoying. So I've tried to come up with different things over the years, but I have an appreciation for those who do it in your perspective, are there any people that you've seen that have stuck out that you have enjoyed? Like, who are those people who have done breakdowns that you've kind of been like, oh, that was actually pretty good?
Um, I think most of the guys who really dig in deep with it, like on YouTube, like there's a channel called I'm gonna get this wrong, dude. It's like Less Impressed, More Involved, or something like that. You may have seen him. I don't know if that's exactly the name of it. That guy, like he does a lot, and there's a lot of people that do them consistently, and I think all of the ones that I've watched, all the guys, they've at least all hitting the nail on the head at least once or more. They've watched something and they really caught on to like something that was going on, and they did a fantastic job of breaking it down. Now, um, a lot of what you're gonna get if you're not within the higher level community, like if you're not communicating with these guys or training with these guys or seeing these guys regularly, a lot of the small things start to get lost because the information isn't being put out there. So if you're just like, let's say you're just random blue belt studying tape and you're training at some gym in like Oklahoma somewhere, and you don't have access to the higher level community as far as like actually speaking with people or being on the mat with people or whatever, um, it's very difficult to just surmise all these things. Yeah, I understand exactly what's going on right here and what he was trying to do, because for the most part, the higher level community is what you're seeing in a match is something that's been being worked on for quite some time. This is not something brand new that they just added in the week before the match. And you just are drawing all these conclusions from this one little thing that happened, and it may not have even happened the way you wanted it to, which is where I think studying instructionals can come in. If there's an instructional out there, let's say that you've decided you're going to go study, you're going to study Gordon, you're going to study his half guard passing. You're like, oh, he does a fantastic job passing the half guard, and he does. He has an incredible half guard passing game. Then you can go and you can get Gordon's half guard passing DVD. And it's not good, in my opinion, to study instructionals as your primary source. I think if you're like brand new, maybe, but if you're really trying to understand what's going on, what the instructionals provide for you is an outline of what he was trying to do in a perfect world.
Mm.
It's like the idea behind what he's trying to do. Not so much about just trying to mimic what they're doing in the instructional, because when you go and you watch him live, if it's not consistent with what's happening live, then what you're seeing live is the adjusted version. What you're seeing live is like what's really being done when there's resistance and problems and extenuating circumstances at the higher levels of the sport. Like this guy's particularly flexible, this guy's particularly strong and explosive, and things like that. But you can then follow that back up with the instructional and really listen to what he was thinking. And that's the most valuable stuff. So when guys are on YouTube and they're talking about what this guy wanted to do in this scenario, I always take that with a grain of salt, because like even myself, like watching things, like I know for me, I'm a black belt. I've been a black belt for a while, competed at a reasonable level, have students who compete at the highest level of the sport. I'm at these big events. I'm watching this stuff. I'm talking to these guys. I don't know what the hell they're thinking when I'm watching it. I'm watching this guy. I'm like, I couldn't tell you what he was thinking right there. How would I possibly know that? I can tell you what it looks like he tried to do, and I can tell you my theory on why it worked or didn't work, whatever that's worth to you. But there's no way I can know what he thought in the moment. That's insane to even say that you know that. But an instructional gives you a chance to at least understand what his idea of what that looks like in a perfect world is going to be. And then you can start to like try and see how he changed it, how he adjusted it for this opponent or that opponent, how he was adapting. You know what I'm saying? And I think that what we see a lot on YouTube. So that's how I differentiate. Like when I start hearing them say like, well, here's what he thought and here's what he wanted to do. If there's no instructional material on that out there, I'm kind of just like, well, that's just, I mean, honestly, we're just saying anything. But when I see he goes, well, look, these 3 times he put his right hand right here, I go, the good call, dude, good call. And it just saved me some time. You know what I mean?
See, I
It
think
just
this
saved
is
me
where
some
we
time.
differ as coaches, because you can clearly see when he posts on that shoulder, he is basically talking to a bully from 15 years ago. And I know that because I watched that video. Or
Yeah.
you could see that he's trying to get revenge for his Who's Number One match 2 years ago that he didn't get the
Yeah.
results he wanted. Obviously,
Yeah.
everybody knows that. We all agree on it. I always think of it like this. I think you approach it like I would as a journalist side, which is you can only state what you know.
Mm.
And then I think people will fill in blanks, like what he really wanted here. And sure, there is some element of, yes, conceptually, maybe he wants this grip or this heel or whatever. I think that's more as a language guy, people using filler words because they don't know specifically how to communicate it. So maybe the intention may not be wrong. It's just the word salad that happens as a result of it is kind of putting in inferences that makes you go, I don't think this has anything to do with his psychological well-being. I think he just wanted to rip this leg off. Like, okay, sure, I'll take that journey with you. I think you kind of picked up on something that I like, which is when I'm watching these things, and you do get the sense that as you're watching a match unfold, when I watch these instructionals, I am looking for narratives. So when I do play-by-play or broadcasting, or especially these interviews, part of the reason why I feel like when I'll do a tape study or I'll do something with that is if I have the athlete with me, I can ask them questions. And what's really great is if they're nodding along and I go, oh, okay, so we're on the right base here. Like I am picking up on something with them, and you give them space to be like, actually, no, you idiot. Here's what I was really doing. And you go, great. They're giving me their intentionality there. So that's great. But what I do notice is if I am doing that, and you're trying to build a narrative on play-by-play or as a commentator or doing analysis, you get the sense of what it means. So you're building a story, and I think that's really impressive. And I think if we were a more perfect thing and we were all paid suitable sort of careers like you would as Fox analyst or an ESPN analyst, I would make it part of my job to be like, hey, we do have to watch these instructionals because now it's providing key information that other sports don't have. Bill Belichick is not putting out his playbook online. The best you can do is get him on a podcast with somebody like me in that sport that goes, hey, what were you thinking here? And instead, he'll probably blank you. And if he gives you 5 minutes of nuggets, that's what you take. Here, you have people basically saying, yeah, my match against this person, I did this and this. Here's what I learned from it. Here's what I got from it. So I think when people look at the strengths and weaknesses of the sport, they're not quite looking at, yes, the weakness is we're not as big, but the strength is look at the outpouring of information you have. You are just smart enough to discern that and go through that information and say, like, what can I provide to my students? So I think that's a very good process. I would tell you, I don't know if you do this on your side. You did mention gear. You did mention some other stuff. I like to explain a concept to students, walk away, let them do their trial and error. So basically our live drill sessions where I'm like, all right, let's see what's happening. And when I pick up new information, let's say a big person, small person battle, I'll go to the small person because I love chaos. And I'll go, hey, here's what you need to know. And the guy goes, what? And I go, here's the information that not everybody else gets. This is what you get. And he goes, oh, okay, coach. And I go, okay, great. I see him make the adjustment. I go to the big man. I was like, hey, come here. Why are you letting him do this? You know you need to get this underhook. And he's like, okay, coach. And I just literally just sit there and go, this is just entertaining to me. You guys keep this up because now I want to see how this plays out. And every time I give you something new, it's not that the concept has changed, but maybe the game has changed for that person so that they get to play a little bit more. And that sometimes one person wins and then you go, okay, let's even this out and see what happens. Yeah. So a lot of times students will start raising. They're like, do I get something today? I go, no, nothing today. You're kind of a shit. So you don't get anything.
You get nothing and you get to like it.
You get to nothing and you get to like it. I wanted to go back to this because you brought up something that was great, which is you mentioned the idea of goal setting. And I want to know, as a coach, when do you realistically come in with goal setting for people that you know are trying to compete at a high level? Because I imagine for every individual that comes into your gym, sure, there is some form of goal setting. When do you actually come in and say like, hey, I think you're good at this, or they've come up to you and they've said, hey, I really want to compete at a more competitive level? Like, when
Mm.
do you really hone in on a higher level goal setting?
So one of the big things that I try to do with the guys, first of all, like everyone's got a goal. So it's like, all right, you've all got goals. Like there's no like I told them usually at the end of the year, we do these team trainings where we all get together and all the guys like so some of my students have their own schools and we just all get together and train at the end of the year at my school and I try to tell them all like, hey, with this new year, you guys should set some hard goals for yourselves. Don't pick something that's so lofty that you can't reach it within a year, but also like don't pick something so small that you're going to be done by February. So let's try to set like a goal for this year. Everyone has a goal. And the goal what I try to do with the goals is because like I said before, I think you're wasting your time if you try to create like goals for people. Not like guide them necessarily, but just like go like, all right, cool. Well, if you train here, here's what you're doing kind of stuff. It's not good. What I try to do is I try to just mitigate bad goal setting. That's the only thing. Like set whatever goals you want and come to me with them. You might be one of the most natural talents I've ever seen, but I'm never going to suggest to you a path that you maybe wouldn't choose for yourself. So I'm not going to be like, "Hey man, you're getting really good really fast. I think you should really pursue the sport." Because what you're telling them is not, "Hey man, you're getting good really fast and because your talent level is very high, I think that this is a real like possible thing for you." What you're telling them in reality is, "Hey man, I think you should decide to sacrifice almost everything in your life to pursue this sport now because you have a little bit of talent." That's that's just not a good thing to tell
Yeah.
people because of a couple of reasons, especially if it's coming from you as the coach. Because sometimes, if they're particularly young and impressionable, you may actually have a situation where they go for it simply to make you proud of them or to gain some kind of, you know, I don't know, something from you. You know what I mean? And it's dangerous. The influence you have as a jiu-jitsu coach is dangerous. You hear a lot of people talk about bad experiences with people who use that influence to achieve nefarious goals, essentially. But what you don't hear a lot is talks from people who are good at like sort of managing that influence. And I think it's something in our sport we could use a little bit more because it'd probably help a lot of people. There's a lot of good people out there that are jiu-jitsu coaches that don't want to misuse that influence, but maybe they just don't really understand the effect they're having on people. I've definitely had talks with my assistant coaches before where it's like, hey man, if you say this to that guy, it's gonna mean this to him. It's not gonna mean what it means to you. Imagine me saying this to you. And then they're like, oh shit, that's heavy. And like, yeah, it wasn't heavy coming out of your mouth, but now you're hearing it and you're going, oh shit, I said that. And it's like, so I would never do that thing. I wouldn't tell them that. But if they come to me and they're like, hey man, I really want to reach a high level of competitive ability in this sport. I want to make a name for myself in this sport. Like Kevin Beering's a perfect example. He's only been training a handful of years, like maybe 3.5 now. And he started when he was 18. And he came to me probably within the first year. And he was like, look, dude, I've never really enjoyed anything I've pursued as much as I enjoy jiu-jitsu. And I really want to pursue this competitively. And I want to be very high level. And honestly, at the beginning, he didn't really show a lot of promise like in the talent area. Like he wasn't just burning everyone. He wasn't some like standout talent like you occasionally see. But he was a good kid with a good head on his shoulders. He got a good heart. I got to know him in that year. His family's great. I love his dad. His dad's awesome. Um, and I was like, sure, man. Well, if that's your goal, then, and you're very young, you have plenty of time to waste essentially. So if you spend the next 5 or 6 years pursuing it, and it doesn't work out, you're going to be like 23 or 24 when you wake up and decide it wasn't for you, and you still have plenty of time to go and pursue whatever else. And he's the kind of kid that could be good at anything he wants to be good at for real. He just has to want it. And so I was like, yeah, you should, if you want my advice, if you just want a yes or a no, then I say go for it. But I never told him he should do it. And so that's usually how. Now if someone came in and they were like 35 and had like 3 kids and a wife, and they're talking about how they're struggling to make it to the gym 3 times a week, and they came and they're like, look man, I want to go to ADCC, I'd be like, well, yeah, you know what I mean?
There's a
Like,
wonderful thing called the Open ADCC. you
Yeah.
got a shot at that. But
Yeah.
the actual one, you know what? I'm gonna let you watch the matches and you tell me.
And it's a bad goal for them, not because they won't make it physically or whatever. It's a bad goal for them because of the sacrifice that it would require. It's
Right.
not that they couldn't make it. They could make it, dude. They could totally make it. 35, dude. Like you could still do it. The problem is the kids and the wife that you have, the job that you have, and the sacrifice that you're now going to make it. It's going to ruin your life. It's a bad goal. Don't do it. And like that's what they don't see. And that's where those decisions get made when you start looking at mitigating like the bad goal setting. And you just go like, hey man, like a guy who isn't like like a guy who's like kind of lazy and they're like, I want to run a school. And I'm like, no, you don't. You want to teach jujitsu because you think it's going to be easier than the job you have. And it might be. You need to go find someone to work for. Don't open a school.
Yeah.
Because opening a business is a ton of work, bro. And you're not, and it's the kind of opening a business is the kind of thing where like there's no one there to tell you you're not doing the work. The business just fails and your life fails. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, don't put yourself in that scenario. Bad goal. But having the goal to train and learn as much as you can about the sport and then going to work for someone else, that might be a good goal for you, man, because then someone else can tell you, hey, man, you need to be here on time. Hey, man, you need to do this and hold you accountable, which is probably what you need. And so that's really how I deal with the goal setting in the gym is I just try to help the guys as they tell me their goals to see if it's a good goal that's not going to fuck their life up tremendously or if it's a bad goal that is going to fuck their life up tremendously. And I'm not telling them like, well, you know, you need to go take this job and you need to go do this and like giving them like a life coach. I'm just saying in regards to jujitsu, if you're a dude with 3 kids and a wife and a full-time job, don't quit your job to train jiu-jitsu full-time. Don't stop spending time with your kids to train jiu-jitsu full-time. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's that kind of guidance that I usually end up giving the guys as far as goal setting.
And that's very helpful because what they don't know is you're playing an instrumental role in looking out for them. Like there's an additional safety net for them, which is, hey, listen, I'm not here to tell you what's best for you. I'm just here to tell you there are ways to do it. For example, if you're 35 and have a family, gear does magic for a lot of people. It's just maybe your family's not going to like you when you're on the gear because of how your mood may shift or how your obsession of trying to do everything to win may pull you out a different way. Like these are all things that are very real possibilities that happen in our sport. So I always like to tell people this, and this came from doing years of being a speech coach and being with kids, college kids, so right out of high school, who either came from really good schools where they were the best at what they did, or kids who were like, I just got a really good work ethic and I want to be a national champion. And you'd be like, okay, cool. There's ways to do it. I've already done it, so I don't have to do it. And I had one guy who literally told me once, he was like, hey, man, I think you're trying to live vicariously through me. And I was like, oh, my God, my guy. And I was like, let me be real with you. If I was going to pick anybody to live vicariously through, it's not you. And the guy just shut up. And then everybody starts laughing. And I'm going to go, do me a solid, man. Anybody who's ever had results, they are comfortable in their skin, but they got there because they have the work ethic. You don't. So when he told me that, I just remember being like, everybody in the like, I had people who were outside who were listening in my office. They're like, what the fuck? And I go, dude, just, he's a kid, you know, like he's looking for any excuse to get out of hard work. So then it becomes, you're a bad coach or you're this. And I go, they have to want it. If they don't want it, I can't do it for them. And it's heartbreaking because what he's trying to tell you is, I want to be better. I don't know how. And for me, I'm happy to work with those who are trying to do it. But if you're going to give me resistance, maybe you either need a different coach or to reset your goals. And for me, I've just always been, it's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. There are guys who I go, hey, you'd be really good at ADCC, or hey, you'd be really good at this rule set, this given. If you're interested, I think you should do that tournament. but it's never hey man, you need to give up everything and do jiu-jitsu. I'm always conditional in terms of you tell me what you want. And if I feel it's good for you, I know the right people, I can put you in touch. And if I'm not the right coach, I know exactly who to talk to. But
Well, and that's the rolls all the way back to the initial conversation you had about Elijah and Ryan and Kev, and how they like how our interactions from coach to athlete goes, and the way that they view our relationships and talk about our relationship. It's just simply because I'm just trying to help them reach their goals, dude. Like, I'm not in here telling them like if I tried to make Elijah into Ryan, Elijah would probably hate me. You know what I mean? Like, and then I could live under like being super shitty to him all the time with this like kind of idea that like, well, I'm just trying to bring out the best in him and all this other stuff. And it's like, that's not really true. The best version of Elijah is the version of Elijah you see right now, because Elijah's being encouraged to do all the things that are going to lift him up, and he's being discouraged from the things that are going to tear him down. And that's just it. He set his own goals. I'm just helping him reach them. I'm not here saying like, well, you see Ryan won EBI, you need to go now win EBI. You need to do that. Elijah
yeah,
was there at EBI, and a couple of the guys were like, oh, you're next, right? You're next, right? And Elijah was like, I don't know, man, maybe Kev. And the reason he said that is because Kevin has those goals.
yeah,
Elijah does not have that goal, and there's no pressure on him to be that person. When Ryan won the EBI Absolute, Elijah was almost in tears. He was so happy for him, but it wasn't, now I need to go do that. And it wasn't, oh, I think Sean likes me less because I don't do the same things that Ryan does and things like that. Like, it's a cultural thing, man. And the guys, I think I've only ever had one student that tried to blame me for anything in regards to that. And he's the one guy that we asked to leave the room ever in the history of our gym. You know what I mean? And
mm,
it's like, bro, like, if you don't succeed in the sport, it won't be because of me. You know what I mean? You can replace me tomorrow, and I hope you do, and good luck. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just here to help people reach their goals, and if you reach them, then great. It wasn't solely because of me, and if you don't reach them, then great. It wasn't solely because of me. So I agree with you 7,000%, man. Like, it, it's crazy sometimes the blame that gets placed on people. Just like if you win, it won't be. You know what I'm saying? Like when Ryan won,
yeah.
I was like, he did it. And Ryan was just like, it's all because of him. And I was like, nah, it's all because of him, bro. Like, I didn't have to fight these massive guys, bro. I would have been a pancake in the first round out there fighting these guys. So,
It's very strange
um,
because I do think there is reciprocal respect between you and your guys. And from the sidelines, for me, interviews like this are a way to both commend you and your team, but also the role that you play in them. Because part of the reason why, when I started thinking about it, I even told, I think, Ryan in our last interview, I was like, you need to let Sean know he's on my list. I was like, we're doing an interview, because if I couldn't remember the last time you were on, or I couldn't remember if you had been on this iteration of the show, I was like, nah, something's happening here. And it's an acknowledgement of what you're talking about. And I think perhaps as an observer from the outside, maybe some of the reason why you're seeing these guys so connected, and when they get emotional for their team, it's because those with similar but different goals, and they say them out loud, and they know what those goals are. They know what
mm,
that means to each other, and they know how hard it is when they're in the room, and they've seen that journey. So, of course, those emotions are going to hit, but it just shows
yeah.
the interconnectedness of that team, where they know the goals, they know how close they get, they know what it's like to not have those goals. And so seeing one of their guys get it is like, oh, he did it. That's amazing. So that is a very healthy and good sort of approach. So I think that always comes from top down. So kudos to you, sir. Well, I want to say this. We should put a pin on it here, because I had questions we didn't even get to, but I think this is a good reminder. You should come back on the show at some point, and we can get to those. I mean, obviously, we didn't even get to your guitar work, and I felt like that was going to be a discussion we were going to have for 15 minutes, at least as fellow music fans. What I always like to do here, sir, go ahead and plug whatever you got going on. I'm going to put the camera on you. The camera is yours, sir.
All right, cool. So, obviously, BJJ Fanatics, if you guys have already picked up my instructional Exploring Outside Helix, I greatly appreciate you guys. That instructional has gone absolutely crazy, and I planned it for like 3 months, so much energy went into that thing. And so for every one of you guys that leaves a review, every one of you guys that messages me and buys it, and just I'm so grateful for you guys, and I hope that you all got miles and miles and miles out of it. So if you haven't checked it out, Exploring Outside Heel Hooks on BJJ Fanatics, it is an offensive outside heel hook DVD or instructional. And it is something that I have poured so much time into, from years of experience applying them in competition to having my guys apply them and studying them and being early on them when people still thought that heel hooks were bad and you shouldn't do them. So just it's uh it's something that I really care about. And if you guys check it out, please message me. Even if you thought that it wasn't good, just let me know what you thought. And that's the big one always. Also, the BJJ Project. So you go on Instagram, the BJJ Project, or they have a website as well, and that's linked in their Instagram, is a platform that some guys have launched, and it's incredibly innovative. It has this scoring system where you answer a bunch of questions, and you kind of tells you what they think that you think you need to work on, essentially. And then it points you in the direction of a bunch of different coaches that have material both already made online that you can watch on those subjects, as well as an opportunity to connect with those coaches and have them help you specifically. And it's an incredible website. They're doing some very interesting things over there. And I do have a guard passing module over there. It's the only thing that I have on there, and it is very much a module and not an instructional. And what I mean by that, it's fairly short. It's about 20 videos. They're only a couple minutes long a piece. It is not a super intensive passing instructional. It's just a module on the contrast between inside and outside guard passing and how to structure those games for yourself. And if you guys want to check that out, like I said, the BJJ Project, it's linked on my own Instagram as well. That's Applegate 10P on Instagram. And if you guys want to check out, that's cool. All of my jiu-jitsu stuff, Applegate 10P on Instagram. You guys can try to add me on Facebook. I'm sorry if it doesn't work out. The friends limit on there is capped, and they only let you have so many. And yeah, I think that's everything that matters.
I just love the guys. I'm so sorry. I have too many friends. I'm very popular.
Dude,
It's so hard to be
dude.
me. No, no.
People get upset
Obviously,
about those friend requests, dude. They do. They're like, I sent you a friend request and it said it was full. I get that message. I sent you a friend request and it said it was full. Bro, I've had Facebook for over a decade. Of course it's full. Like, it just fills up. Half those accounts probably aren't even real. I don't know.
I've always thought of it like this, where I tell people, I go, I have a policy which is that I don't friend people because I know you have to buy into my nonsense. Because it's not that I don't like you. It's just I post a random assortment of shit. Like, I like a lot of different things. I like music, movies. So if you come here expecting jiu-jitsu 100% of the time, I have bad news for you. It might be a shitty joke that day. It might be a project I worked on. It might be something that I'm promoting for somebody else. So you can't come on here and be like, I hate what Raph posts. It's like, well, you bought into me.
Yeah.
This is your fault. I didn't do shit. So I tell people, I'm like, sometimes if I don't friend you, it's kind of like, you're welcome. I'm trying to spare you from the nonsense I post. But Sean, I'm going to close this up. I'm going to say bye to you off air. I wanted to tell you, congratulations to you and your team. You are producing a fine team out there. It has been fun to watch. I know I run into you here and there, but these opportunities are always great when I get to catch up with you. And you know, I just know whenever I see you in the corner of the screen somewhere, I know something is big. And I want to say this. I think it's really dope that you were able to get another one of your guys, like not only that shine from EBI, but to get that notice when they're like, maybe we're going to pull him into EBI, or maybe we're going to pull him into ADCC. And the rest of us saw what you see with Ryan, which is, no, he should be there. This is not I don't know. I go, no, he's of that element. And if we really are trying to put together a group of individuals that are the best in the modern sphere, he has to be in that discussion. So I feel like him being in that top 16, there's a lot of upside. So we'll see. I'll definitely be watching you out in the corner, probably where you're not supposed to be. Only this time a little bit closer now as a coach. So kudos to you and your team, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate all the kind words, and I appreciate the time today.
Of course, I'll talk to you in just a second off air. But to the rest of you yahoos, thank you so much for watching this interview. I appreciate it. We're going to do this this way. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have no idea what you want to comment on, how about in the comment section, you tell us how someone has done goal setting with you. I'd love to hear that, because to me, as a coach, it's something of major interest to me. So big ups to you guys on that side. Like, comment, subscribe. Also, join us on patreon.com/grappling hour. You support the show, you support me, you support the many different endeavors I do. You buy all this gear, this, all of this. Your support helps pay for all of this show, and it really does help. So every little bit there. And we do try to bring on a little bit of everybody who's doing big things in the sport. So on that side, patreon.com/grappling hour. $5 a month, just see these interviews 30 days before anybody else. And if you're watching it free right now, I don't hate you. It's just, you know what I mean? Like, $5 isn't that much. I'm just saying. You guys are pretty cheap. It's not a big thing. Anyway, all right. Last couple things. We are on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Go find us there. Give us some love, support, rate, and review. That does help. Yes. If you were cheap, you don't have the money, you can leave a rate and a review, and you can share these things. And you can join our Discord at Grappling Hour. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us here at the Grappling Hour. It has been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats.